All right, the people, 5:46 on August 15, 2024, calling this meeting to order. As we begin this meeting, it's important to pay respect to and acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Ohlone, Costanoan, and Esalen people, and additionally pay respect to elders both past and present. Can we have a roll call, please?
President Swanson,
Present.
Clerk Hazen,
Here.
Trustee McNary,
Here.
Trustee Otmar,
Here.
and Trustee Swanson is absent.
And do we need to read the script? And I don't know if I have. Okay. Okay, great. So we do have one board member remote. I want to announce that we have a trustee who, for the record, is teleconferencing tonight. And I am therefore going to read our typical disclaimer. I'd like to announce for the record that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to California Government Code 54953, Section B. I'm sure you all know it, concerning teleconferencing of meetings. Dr. Elliot Hazen is participating in this meeting by speakerphone from, and could you give us the address if you would be so kind, Dr. Hazen?
Sure. It's 709 Erdley Avenue.
Terrific. All right. A few questions to ask Dr. Hazen in accordance with the Brown Act. Also in accordance with the Brown Act, this location has been identified on the agenda for this meeting. Dr. Hazen, are you able to hear our proceedings on this end?
Yes,
Terrific. Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
I do.
And has the agenda been posted at your location?
It has.
Is your location such that any member of the public could participate in the public portions of this teleconference meeting from your location?
Yes.
Great. Members of the board, are you all able to hear Trustee Dr. Hazen?
Yes, I am.
Great. All right. I see everybody's able to hear. So for the record, all members of the board have said yes. Finally, because we are having a meeting with teleconferencing tonight, all of our actions will be via roll call versus what we usually would do, which is a majority vote. So great. Thank you. We've moved through that. Let's move on to the adoption of the agenda, which I think everybody has in front of me or in front of themselves. Is there anybody online with public comment as it relates to the agenda? Seeing nobody, and anyone in the room? Seeing nobody, let's move to board discussion on the agenda. Are there any issues, discussion? Seeing nobody. Dr. Hazen, are you okay online too? All right, so we're good. All right, great. So now looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented this evening.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion from Trustee McNary and a second from Trustee Dr. Hazen. This is a roll call vote, as all votes will be tonight. So can we begin with that?
One quick question. Did we have a walk-on item too, or has that already been incorporated in this latest version?
No walk-ons, no. They were all on the agenda.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so roll call vote. All in favor?
President Swanson.
Aye.
Clerk Dr. Hazen.
Aye.
Trustee McNary.
Aye.
Trustee Otmar.
Aye.
And
And
Trustee
anybody?
Swanson
I'm sorry.
is absent.
All right, and anybody opposed? I don't think so. So passes unanimously. And with that, we're moving on to closed session to identify closed session topics. Number one, negotiations with collective bargaining, PGTA. Number two, negotiations collective bargaining with CSEA. The third item, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, leave, complaint, Government Code 54957. And the fourth, conference with legal counsel over anticipated litigation. Is there any public comment on these closed session topics before we move to closed session? Seeing nobody online, seeing nobody in the room. And with that, we are going to adjourn to closed session. And good people, at 6:18 on August 15, coming back from closed session, reporting on those items discussed, items 1 and 2, nothing to report. Item 3, information was shared. Same with item 4, numerous topics, information was shared. And now, if we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Trustee Otmar, would you be so kind?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. All right, moving on now to our consent agenda. There are just a couple of items on here, A and B. Let's first move out to any public comment, either online or in the room, as it relates to consent agenda. Nobody online? Beth, anything on consent? Okay, so moving then to board discussion. Board, anything as it relates to the consent agenda? I'm seeing no one, and I don't see anything from trustee Dr. Hazen. So again, this evening, because we have a remote board member, all votes are roll call. First, we need a motion to approve consent.
I also move. I'll second.
Great, we have a motion to approve from trustee Otmar, a second from trustee McNary. Let's go with the roll call, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk Dr. Hazen.
Here.
Trustee McNary
Aye.
and trustee Otmar.
Aye.
Just to confirm, Clerk Dr. Hazen, I think you were saying yes, correct? I think
Yes,
we
here,
heard you say here. Yes, okay, very good, thank you.
All right. All right, so that's 4 out of 5. Trustee Carolyn Swanson is not with us, so I'm going to call that a unanimous vote, and it is approved. So consent has been approved, and let's now move on to action discussion item A, which is a proposed board calendar. Everybody should have that. It's also in the packet for anybody who's playing along at home or is online. Is there any public comment as it relates to our board calendar for 24-25 school year? Nobody online? Oh, yeah, my gosh.
Public.
Oh. Even no microphones.
Thank you. Beth Shamas. My comment is on the Thursday, December 12th, regular board meeting. I believe you'll be swearing in some new board members. And it's not listed there. So just a correction.
Thank you for pointing that out. Dr. Adamson, is that something that we need to tweak just to make sure that it's added to that
Movement.
as
to
we pass the microphone around?
We should, if the board would, yes, like to make a motion to have that added, I would very much recommend that, yes.
Also move. Well, before we do that,
And
we should probably ask again, is there any public comment as it relates to that particular item? Seems like the practical thing to do. Otherwise, it'd be very confusing for everybody. Nobody online. Board members, any additional comments on that? Seeing nobody, Dr. Hazen, I don't think so either. So I'm going to make that motion to add that particular item so we can make it official. Can I see a second?
I'm happy to second.
Okay, so I so moved. A second from trustee McNary. Roll call vote on that.
before we
addition.
take
Yes.
that, there was just one change that was made
Okay.
to that I just wanted to point out to everyone, and that has to do with the September special meeting. We changed the date to the 12th as opposed to the 19th.
Okay,
And so I just want to be sure that all trustees are good with that change as well.
let's go around the horn again. First, again, online, if there's any public comment online about that change. Seeing nothing online, nothing in the room. Board, can we add that to accept those changes? I'm okay to add that to my motion. Trustee McNary, you're good for that for the second. Okay, so let's roll call on that.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk Dr. Hazen,
Here, and also I.
Aye.
Trustee McNary,
Yes.
and Trustee Otmar.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for moving that forward. That's it for action discussion. Moving on now to information discussion, which is board governance training and board goals review.
That is correct. And so I am going to propose that we move to the small tables in front of us, where we will go ahead and begin the continuation of our governance training. And yes, some additional activities we'll be doing.
As a point of order, before we move on, I do see in our binder that there's a walk-on item that was Mr. Jorns for out-of-county trips. It's dated August 15 for the PCAL JV Volleyball Jamboree.
I think
that-
you're right. I think
I
you-
see it, I mean, I see it sitting in the resources that I have. I was just curious if,
That was the one I was trying to bring up early too, but yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't sure if it was still on the agenda or not.
thanks. I don't see it on our agenda and we did adopt it, so we might be in a pickle.
So we're gonna have to do that after the fact when it comes back again, right?
As a ratification.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you
glad we
for
caught
catching that though.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay, so usually at this point too, when we move into this, camera goes off. And I think that's what we're doing as well, right?
No, we'll continue.
Oh, we're gonna stay online.
Continue
Okay.
recording. Yes, yes, like we did last time. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, might be a little clunky and weird as we all move our spots. But now we're moving on to that portion of the meeting. So great.
Perfect. And we'll
Let's do
take
that.
our microphones with us, I think. Yes, yeah. Thank you. Yes. Microphone on. So the first few, we're going to just take the first 15 minutes or so. I really wanted an opportunity to talk, through a little with all of you, something that we're working on as a management team. And this is our book that we've selected for the year. So I have number one, purchased one for each of you. You'll see the little, bookmark with our theme for this year, Culture of We, and our three core values, safety, belonging, and prosperity. It's a book that, we've selected and really already started reading, already started some activities. This formed a big part of our first leadership retreat that we had back in July. And it was I was so, just proud of all of our managers, coming together that day in how, we just approached the day, number one, and how they approached the day. This was really a nice sort of beginning for us to sort of, set the stage for not just our work for that day, but ultimately our work for the whole year. Really that whole concept of trusting and inspiring, ties in so much with our message and our theme for this year of building that culture, that community of we, and really ties in beautifully with our three core values, right? Because I think for safety, belonging, and prosperity to occur, you need just strong elements of trust, right? Have to be there. Stephen Covey is, if you don't know him, he's, just very much known amongst the, educational, circles. He's done a lot of other books. And so anytime he brings one out, everyone we're like, oh my God, we've got to read this next one. But this is definitely one of my favorites so far, that I've read of his. And really it just ultimately talks about, the importance of, number one, serving as a leader who trusts those that, you serve and you work for, but also who you work with. It's really about, as you're working together as a team, we've got to trust, your teammates on the team, but also your own staff, as managers, everyone in that room, leads a large group of people. And so it really is about just thinking about ourselves in terms of, who we serve and who, the teams that we lead, but also our role in, the team we serve on a leadership team as well. And I love that concept because I think it ties in so beautifully to you as a board and how we, work together and how we're talking about governance and so many incredible and just inspirational elements from the book and from those discussions that, really apply to, the work that we do here. And so that's one of the reasons I thought too, we could tie that in. So what I'm just going to do with, the book is here. We're going to read it throughout the year as a management team. I thought we could sort of, break it up a little as well, with the board, but I'd love to bring to you throughout the year just some of the activities and discussions that we, will be doing as a leadership team that I think, will apply. But I think it's also just really good for all of you to know, this is something that we're focusing on to, as a leader, you're constantly looking for ways to, I think, fine tune, those skills, be reflective, and just think about, the role you play, right? That makes us stronger and better constantly. And before I go on to the little video that I'm going to share with you, the part I love about the book is really, when he talks about it, people often hear the word leader and think, well, that's not me. I'm not a leader. But really, he talks about how we are leaders in every role we play, right? Even as a parent, as a friend, as a family member. When you start to think about everyone in your life, professionally and personally, you start to realize, wow, we're leading through example. We're leading through how we treat one another. And that's the part I think is so powerful, in the book. And I think that's the part as well that, impacts us as a team as well. So that's that in a nutshell. I think the first slide is a little video. It's a 2-minute video, and it's Stephen Covey because he just kind of gives a little bit of an overview of the book itself. And I love this. I shared this with our leadership team as well. So just sit back and listen a little, and he'll kind of sum it up in 2 minutes.
The old style of leadership is rooted deeply in the industrial age, and you might call it command and control. Now, we brought more benevolence to it to make it kind for command and control, but the paradigm was command and control to bring out the best in our people and to really operate efficiently. Operating today with command and control as your leadership style is like playing tennis with a golf club. The tool is completely ill-suited to the new reality. So I like to say that the new way to lead is to go from command and control to trust and inspire. And that's not just a nice platitude. It's all about truly tapping into the creativity, the talent, the innovation, the engagement of our people. When they're trusted, they'll be inspired. And when they're inspired, it will bring out the best in them. They'll rise to the occasion. They'll perform better. They'll give you everything that they have. And without that, we're operating in the old world of command and control. There are 3 key reasons why trust and inspire is a better way of leading than command and control in today's world. First is today's world is a knowledge worker age. We're not in the industrial age anymore. Command and control was a style that was suited for the industrial age. Trust and inspire is a style that's suited for the knowledge worker age. Second is how work is done today. It's collaborative. It's partnering, teaming, collaborating, innovating. All those things require trust. If you don't trust your people and extend trust to them, you won't be able to collaborate with them, partner with them, team with them in the kind of ways that need to happen today in order to succeed. Third, it's a multi-generational workforce. Our workforce is changing right in front of our eyes. Let's take millennials as one example of that. Millennials don't want to be managed. They want to be led. They want to be inspired. And nothing does that like a leadership style of trust and inspire versus command and control. It's a different way of leading that's suited for our times today. We're Franklin Covey, and we know trust.
Thank you. Thank you. Just keep reminding me. So the next slide really I'd use just because it summarizes a little bit of, what he's just spoken about. And really the opening part of the book is just how the nature of our workforce has changed, right? And he, hit 5 things, right? The nature of the world has changed, nature of work, nature of the workplace, the workforce, and ultimately the nature, of choice has changed. And I think that's what we see so much more as well, is that, people are, choosing with their feet, right, where they want to be and spend, such a big portion of their time. So, as leaders, it's never been more important for us to really, really think about that, we want to create that culture, right, in which, our people want to be and stay, right, is an important piece of it. I love this. This is really just a quote that's used in the book, but I think it sums up so much. If we treat people as they are, they'll remain as they are. But when we treat them as they can and should be, they'll become who they can and should be. And again, I think that's that part of the inspirational piece. Stephen talks about in the book that the word inspire is actually, it's Latin roots truly literally mean breathe life into, so it's not this idea of it, the opposite of extinguish, right? It really is just it's inspiring, right? And, just giving that life to others. So I love that concept of it. And this just really gives, the 2 next slides a quick summary of, that comparison of the command and control and then trust and inspire. So we spent a bit of time as a leadership team sort of looking, at that sort of, comparison, right? And I highlighted that first one because I think that epitomizes, so much, the biggest difference, right? You're managing people and things when you lead, with a command and control approach versus leading people, right? Which is trust and inspire. And then the last 2, the second last 2, that I've highlighted there, you're looking at, sort of a machinist versus a gardener. And as we talked about that as a leadership team, we really, someone I remember, I think it was Dr. Hagwas talked about, no, I think it was Chief Rogerman, just really getting your hands in the dirt, right, when you're gardening, right? And that's kind of the sense of it when you're trusting and inspiring those you work with, that approach. It's that organic component to it, right? You're really involved, you're working alongside, those you're serving and leading with. And then just that concept of a fixed, versus a growth mindset, right? It really is about that approach when you're doing it. So this next activity, I really just want you to, you've all got a little handout, and this is something that I asked all of our, managers, our leaders to really do. So we're just going to take, 2 minutes. It's not something you're going to share out. This is really just an individual, activity for you. But to really just think about, someone in your life who's, maybe trusted and inspired you. And so the questions, are reflective to really kind of get you thinking about what that felt like, right? So, what was it like to work with the person? How did it feel? How did they change your belief in yourself? And how did you grow as a result? So we'll take a few minutes just to really think that out and think about it. No, you're not going to, it's really just your own personal one. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important too, right? Because it's a very personal activity. Yeah. Piece in the book where Stephen Covey, it's one of my favorite stories, and he opens the book up in the introduction, and it's a story he calls Green and Clean. And I won't, share the whole component of it, but he talks about the first person he learned about trust and inspire from, and was the first person in his life who trusted and inspired him was his dad. And it was really came down to a chore, that he had sort of signed up to do as, one of the siblings, and he took on, the keeping up of the lawn. And, the way his dad sort of explained to him what his role was going to be, there were 2 things that stood out to him. And the first was that he's going to be his own boss, that he bosses himself. And so, as a 10-year-old boy, he loved that concept of it. But then the second part of it was he said, you've got people who work for you. Guess who's here to help you? And he said, as his dad, that's me. When I've got time and you need help, you reach out to me and I'm gonna come and work alongside you, and he just remembers, learning that lesson and, how he didn't necessarily the first few weeks, really do keep up his end of the bargain. And rather than his dad sort of coming down on him and, he kind of really came alongside him to see how do you need help, right? And, really he learned that lesson, firsthand through it. And so, just an inspiring and a simple story, but it just speaks to, what the elements of the trusting piece of it are, right? Okay, so just keep that with you. And, I think what I've encouraged our leadership team to do is, hold that on, and it'll be something we come back to, as we, do continue to read through the book as well, because that's such a personal piece to it. This is just a simple, summary. There, 5 fundamental beliefs of a trust and inspire leader, and you'll see it sort of starts on the left that I believe. And so as a result of that belief, our job as leaders is to, I'll just let you, sort of read it a little yourselves. And I'm just going to ask if anything on that page sort of stands out to you as you're thinking about the concept of trust and inspire. And if so, if you wouldn't mind sharing it.
I love the third one, especially.
Microphone on.
And I love the third one, especially that it's like, there's enough for everyone. And when I read that, to me, it says, it's like, as you grow and succeed and accomplish these tasks, it doesn't diminish somebody else's. There's enough for everyone, right? It's like, we can all succeed, we can all grow together, and we can, and absolutely can do it together. But just because you succeed doesn't diminish or take away from somebody else. There is enough for everyone. That's the way I read that.
Right. Yeah. Takes away that competitive side of it, I think, right? It's just, your success helps me, right? Doesn't diminish my success. Yeah.
I'll speak, if I can, to the fourth a bit. I feel this is a big part of public education, that if you're choosing to be a teacher, if you're choosing to, work for kids, if you're choosing in some ways to be on the board, in most ways to be on the board, you're doing that, the putting service above self-interest. And I think that's an important thing for us all to remember, both about the people we work with, but also, again, the reason we're doing it, right? It's for the kids. It's not for us.
Really well said, Trustee Hazen. Yeah.
If I can just briefly go back to your story about Stephen Covey Jr. and his dad, it's a classic example of command and control versus trust and inspire. When he was not keeping the lawn up, there would be a tendency, most of us, to do control and command and control, because you're not doing it and get on the case. He chose to go alongside, as Linda said, and that created trust and inspired his son to move forward. So those are a classic example of how that was used. We had a chance to have him at a retreat recently himself, and he talked about that story, so I knew it very well. We had hired one of his associates to come and do the presentation. She was into Brazil, was going to flying home. She got pink eye. And so he knew we had this group of administrators from throughout the state. And he says, I'll come do it. He literally came and did it for the price of the person who was going to do it originally, not his price, which is 3 times as much as that. All right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the last one resonates with me. Enduring influences created from the inside out go first. I think whether or not we believe ourselves as leaders, we sit in these seats as role models and leaders for the district. And it's kind of a reminder that doing kind of the right thing or in a certain situation isn't always easy. It might be the harder thing to do, but sometimes that's the role. And, we can go first and set an example and do the same thing for the kids. So.
Absolutely.
I think you talk so much in that about it's modeling.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. Well said.
For me, it was the third, which is there's enough for everyone. I think in society, a lot of people tend to feel negated when other people are successful around them. I think a lot of that just has to do with ego, and self-reflection and all of that. So just knowing that there really is enough for everybody, and just because I succeed doesn't make somebody else's success less shiny. You know, it just means we get to shine together. So yeah, that third one really speaks to me.
Well, beautifully said. I love how you all sort of highlighted something and gave, such a strong example of it as well. So again, those are the fundamental beliefs, and every one of the chapters throughout the book really sort of, comes in to speak to that. So thank you for sharing, everyone. It was powerful. I think for me, I think that first one, people have greatness inside them, and, it's all about unleashing their potential, because, it starts with that and kind of being able to identify and, what that greatness is, because sometimes people don't know it and they don't see it in themselves. I think of myself, even, in my career, it was other people who tapped me and pointed it out to me, like, Linda, you have this ability, and so, go forth. And I myself, there's no ways. What do you mean? How can you see that in me? And it comes down to others, who sometimes have to, sort of plant that seed. And when you do, and then you give that trust, that encouragement, right, to them, it's just amazing things can happen as a result of that. So, yeah, that's one that resonates with me. All right, I think, the next slide just really talks about the three stewardships, of a trust and inspire leader. And again, these are sort of the key tenets, of the book itself. And, so really you're looking at modeling, and we've talked a little bit about that already, that sense of, we're constantly, modeling for those we serve what our expectations are, right? And how we want to be treated as well, right? It's sort of that reciprocated concept. Inspiring, right? Connects to the why, and then trusting, how you lead. So what I've done is the next 3 slides, I've done, one slide for each of those to just break it up. And I'm going to go ahead and, just read a little bit of that summary that comes from the book, and just ask you to sort of reflect a little on thinking, what does that mean? And maybe how does that, look in practice as well? So the first one, really talks about the modeling piece. And this quote, I think, just says it all, that, example is not the main thing in influencing others. It's the only thing, right? That, that idea of, people are learning from us, we can say words, but unless we're putting them into practice, right, it's meaningless. And so, that ending question is, what are people around us learning, and what are we modeling? Just that constant awareness, right? And then when you look at the circle, I love it, because, this concept, there are sort of activity cards that go with this, and you'll see that, the emperor's and it's empathy and performance. The concept here is one can't really exist without the other, right? The question is actually asked, like, what would a leader who shows empathy but no performance look like, right? So really, it's about sort of developing both of them: authenticity and vulnerability, humility and courage. And again, just how we're modeling that, right, for ourselves and others. The second is trusting, trusting how we lead. And this concept, I underlined it there on the slide, but, I think what Stephen Covey walks us through is, often when we're trusting people, we're trusting them because, they, as leaders, or, just in people in our lives, because they were, in trusting them to do something for us, right, that we need. But really, the true component of trusting is when we're just trusting them for, for what it can do for them. And I think that's that element of, when we're sort of, really sort of building people and encouraging them and sort of trying to get a sense and show them what they can be. That's not for us, right? That's for them. And I think that comes into, as we, I think even as we think about ourselves, working as a board, that's a powerful concept, right? It's about what we are really doing for each other, that building up piece of it, right? We're lifting each other up through, the work we do. And I think for our leadership team, that's powerful, right, too, because we're stronger when, we're there, and working together and connected, arms linked, right? And, together on our decisions and moving in that same direction, right? That concept of it. And then the last one is just inspiring. And I think here, that's, I mentioned it earlier on, that concept of to inspire is really, literally means breathe life into, right? And here, you're connecting to your why, right? Your purpose, that concept there of self, relationship, and team. It's always thinking about how, okay, who I am, right, personally, but, the relationship, to, my purpose as a member of a team, but also, the relationships that I have, right, within, my own personal and professional life. But ultimately, it comes down to that ability to connect with people. And then really, this will be something that, we kind of work through, as the book goes forward. But, Stephen Covey talks about the beginning, like, sometimes when you read it, oh, trust, inspire, everyone thinks I am a trust and inspire leader, right? But, these ultimately are, I think any one of us, could probably read that list and think of a couple that maybe apply, right? That we've maybe asked ourselves and, before in any role, right, that we lead. But, these are important. And so again, these will probably bring back and come back to visit. But I ask you all, just as you're thinking personally, you don't have to share it out, but, maybe highlight one or two that you've thought of yourself, but also, just in thinking of others, right? I think a big part of, trusting and inspiring, the work we do with one another is recognizing it in ourselves. But, we may, also see some of those elements in those we work with. Right. And, rather than turning into a command and control kind of leader and, feeling the need to point it out, it's like, how can we go about in our way of, maybe just modeling that more for others. Right. And when we do that, it's kind of magical in how that can happen. Right. When, you sort of, reap what you sow. Right. And, I think when we're, following some of those actions, it becomes, I think brushes off, on others, right, that we work with. But those are tough ones, right? I mean, those are tough questions there, right? And it's just, I think, as a leadership team ourselves, those will be ones that I think, we definitely will commit to, keeping aware of and, just being honest, right, about when we get to that point, because you can be the most trusting and most inspiring leader. And I think there's still going to be moments, right, where one of those are going to come up at any given time. And, I think just being reflective and honest about that and, taking the time to pause and reflect always is a good practice. But yeah, I think, I love this because the model, trust, and inspire component, right? If we, model, people will think they want to be like that person. When we trust, they want to deliver for that person. And I think that's also, he talks about in the book, the difference between sort of motivation and inspiration. Right. And so you can motivate people, to want to do things and give things and, sort of give deadlines and, rewards. But really, when you inspire people, there's a difference because they really, it's that, right? They want to deliver for you as that person because of how you, really make them feel about themselves. Right. I think that's powerful. And then, when we inspire people, we want them to think, right? They want to contribute with that person. And that's a strong concept too, right? It's not as a trust and inspire leader, you're not doing things to people, you're really doing it with and for. Which is powerful. Yeah. And then this was really at the end of the day of our leadership team, it was just such a wonderful energy that we, had throughout the day. And, so one of the ending activities that I asked everyone, let's, what's your takeaway, of the day? And I think this is powerful. And I wanted to capture it too, because this is going to be something we bring back throughout the year, as a team to really think about, which of those words. And, on the one I shared with the leadership team yesterday at our first meeting, it had their names on it. With you, I wanted to share those. But, it's really what, the question we asked them yesterday was, let's keep going back to that energy and the motivation, because it's easy to feel it, I think, in the beginning of the year, as things get busy and hard and, it's harder to keep that in mind. And so that's been a commitment, you know, that we're making to each other, right? And I'd love to do something similar with us, you know, as a board as well. You know, at the end of today, we're going to ask for your takeaways on where we are, to really be able to, I think, tap into that a little and, you know, keep that motivation, the trusting and the inspiring, you know, just that whole concept alive as we continue and proceed with the year. Well, that's really it. And I'm going to take that at the end. Any thoughts, any, you know, share outs and things? I know this was a quick little summary of it. And, you know, I think I really want to weave some of this into our, you know, future sessions as we're, you know, reading portions of the book and, you know, have you do some of those activities, or actual little work cards, you know, and activity cards that, you know, I'd love to be able to do in future moments. But any takeaways and share outs from that?
I think, excuse me, I think just from what I've heard so far, it's pretty interesting how you can apply it to, well, I am anyway, applying it to different areas in my life, parenting, workplace. I mean, almost every facet of your life, I think this can apply to. So I just think that that's fascinating, you know, that there's a strong tie between each area. They're all interlinked. So that's where I'm at.
Well said, Laura. Yeah, love that. Love that.
Well, I was scribbling down notes here and there, but we're flipping through the slides, and one of the things again that, and you're absolutely spot on, Laura, I think too, where it's just like it's universal, right? It's whether it's work that we do here as a board, or the work that we do as parents or as spouses, you know, somebody in a relationship, you know, or family members, our own family members, right? All of it, right? Our work, you know. But one of the things I wrote down is to grow, or to grow people, it requires vulnerability on our own part. And requires us to kind of let go. There's a lot of ego involved. And it requires us to let somebody else shine, let somebody else take the wheel. And I think that's a key part in helping somebody else rock their world, right? It's just like, oh, I'm going to get out of your way, actually, and I'm here if you need me, but I'm going to go and let you do your thing. And I think that's very hard. It's very hard for me to do, you know, but I try. And I think about my work situation right now, especially with a couple of people. It's like, all right, I've been doing this a long time. And some of the people that I work with have not been doing it as long. And I got to let them go and do their thing. And then just be there for them if they need it, you know. So there was that. I also wrote down, because they're one of those slides, it's like it said 5 times, what if? Like, what if? And I think about when my girls were just wee beasties and they just asked me all the time. And it would always catch me. It's just like, well, Dad, what if? What if this? What if that? And finally, I just said to them, it's like I don't do what if. We're going to deal with what if when that comes up. But in the meantime, you go and do it, and then we'll deal with the what if when it happens. You know, if you need help with the what if because the what if happened, all right, then we'll do that. We'll get into that and we'll figure it out. But we're not going to sit here and let that paralyze us either. We're just going to go and do our thing. And that was a real turning point, I think, for me as a dad. Is to just, I was like, oh gosh, they have to figure out this stuff on their own and figure out how to navigate that. And then I'll just hang in the shadows if they need me, you know. And it when that time when I finally started to say to them, it's like, I don't do what if anymore. It's like, it just made being a dad a whole lot better. And you know, so to not dwell on all of that stuff, I think it was a real turning point. So those are a couple of immediate thoughts. I don't know what else I wrote down here. What is this? You're capable of change. You are not who you think you are. you're capable of great things. I think that's something we can all remind ourselves of, that it's, and I was listening to something the other day. I listened to a lot of podcasts, but they were talking about it's like who we think we are, who other people think we are, and how that all just, how we manage all of that stuff. It's like how people perceive us, how they might not, how we perceive ourselves, how we might not, all these things. But I think, like on one of the slides too, it had said, it's like, we're capable of great things, and everybody's just capable of really, really great things. Sometimes we just need to give ourselves permission to go for those things too, or for other people to step away and let us do those things too, and let us go and rock this world or rock this other world. So, but yeah, I think we're all capable of really, really tremendous things. So those are my immediate thoughts.
That's great, Brian. I can tell you, I was at Disneyland recently and I did the Walt Disney tour. And it's basically through Main Street, and he talks about the docent talked about the buildings, why he put certain buildings there, why certain names were there. But one of the things he did with his Imagineers to this point, they would bring him a project and he would look at it and say, wow, that's great. That's a great project. Plus it up. And that became the word around there. Plus it up. And that encouraged them to go back. Oh, let's try to make it better, even to impress him even more. But he gave him the ability to go back, plus it up. I have confidence in you and I have trust in you that you can make it better.
I love the idea of trust and inspire, but what I love more is all the concrete facts and evidence that demonstrate that we're committed to it and that we're going to do the work, like having our goals, even just having this governance training, it being so structured and organized and it has a purpose. And I feel like each time we've done one of them, it's improved. So those are the kinds of things I see. I mean, especially with you being here, that it's like, makes me hopeful, makes me want to trust, makes me want to keep going and be like, all right, what's next? Instead of, oh no, what's next? I will vocally say I don't love coming to governance training of all the board meetings, but I love that it feels like we're headed in a direction where we're going to get some good work done. So for me, that's like the piece that is the trust and inspire, is watching it and getting to start being a part of it. So.
Elia, did you want to share anything?
It just brings me back to the term again of the we, right? I mean, I think part of being a leader and, the trust and inspire is, there's the leadership style of walking ahead of someone, there's a leadership style of walking behind, but it's that leadership style of kind of walking beside them, so that, I think it's very important for people to feel that, equal, maybe not on all fronts, but at least have an equal control over their destiny in some way in the process. And so that's what it really makes me think about, is how do we keep focusing on creating that, where we're giving everybody that ability to walk beside, whether it's a student to a teacher to an administrator, and really, feel an equal in the solution.
Wow. Okay. Lou, did you want to add anything?
I was taken aback. And what comes to my mind on the trust and inspire is going back and thinking where we were, where you were as a governance body before we began this work, and where you are now. And frankly, I find that inspirational. I think the group has made a tremendous amount of progress coming together as a cohesive body in a very positive way. So what I find in that is inspiration to continue doing this work, to see the progress that you all have made.
Oh my gosh, I love how you said it, and I think that's a great way to end with it, Lou. But I agree, and I think when my takeaway at the end of our management team had been inspired, and the reason was I was inspired. I'm inspired by that group, just the unbelievable the growth I've been able to see in them, and just the courage that they show. But I'm inspired by all of you. I mean, I think that's the piece. Lou, you said it so well. Just how you've worked through I mean, it's in this role, it's not no day. I think any 2 days are easy. No one's ever going to describe it that way. But I think how you've come together and been able to work through just some tough decisions, some tough moments. We talk about that go first, right? I think each of you have ultimately you've proven that and shown and demonstrated in the roles that you play, but you've also really shown your ability and your commitment to the work that you do, but to each other, right? To our district, but ultimately to each other. And I think that's the beautiful part about it. And I think I leave and I approach work every day feeling inspired as a result of that. And I think that's important because we've got to remind each other, I think, of the progress that we've made. And that's, I think, what spurs you on, forward to continue, right? Trusting and inspiring one another and others. You're a remarkable group, honestly. And I'm just lucky, I think, to really be able to be doing this work together, really. And so don't lose sight of that. And Lou, that's so important to keep remembering where we've come from, right? That's a critical piece of it. So there you go. Yep. And I think that's a perfect time for me to transition over and hand it to our two incredible leaders here, to Lou and Eric, to take us on into the next work. But we're going to keep coming back to this. So you've got the book, I'll kind of, give an idea. We'll ease our way through it. It's not going to be this expectation you've got to read by a certain amount, but we'll kind of, work our way through some of the key components. And I'll keep you updated as well with the work we're doing, our leadership team as well. It's exciting. It's really exciting. Thank you all for sharing so beautifully. Wow, it's powerful. And I've written it all down. I think I'm going to end at the end to share out again what I'll take out for them. So good. Eric and Lou, I'm going to hand it to you two.
I wanted to, first of all, say I'm sorry I'm not there today, but I think I'm glad that I'm not exposing you to what I came down with. It certainly has not been fun for the last week. It's been pretty miserable, but I'm glad to be here by Zoom and appreciate your flexibility in doing this by Zoom. There are two housekeeping items that Linda and I discussed that we should talk about, and that's additional trainings. One, on January 1, there is going to be a legal requirement for ethics training for school board members, 2 hours every 2 years. And I just wanted to let you know that there is going to be an email coming from our firm. We're setting up the training session on October 1 from 9 to 11. It's going to be online, and that'll go out to all our clients to let them know that is going to be available. And if you, for some reason, you can't make it on October 1, there'll be additional trainings that we'll be setting up in 25. So that was one. And then a second thing was a question came up about board members' responsibilities as mandated reporters. Are you mandated reporters? And are you required as such to undergo the mandated reporter training that you've been participating in? The short answer is legally you are not mandated reporters unless you, as part of your duties, don't think any of this duty of having unsupervised contact with students. If you have unsupervised contact with students as part of your duties, then you are by definition a mandated reporter. Nevertheless, while we don't think that the mandated reporting training is legally required for board members, we think it's a good idea to do it because it just lets you know what the responsibilities are of your staff and what it's all about. So it's discretionary with you whether or not you want to do it. We think it's a good idea, but you're not legally required to do it. So I just wanted to get that out there. Eric, I don't know if there's anything that you want to bring up before we get into the work that we were doing on the handbook.
No, I think I'm good. I think I want to get into the meetup, the training, reviewing a little bit about what we've done in the interim, and then moving forward with the rest of the handbook.
All right, I was going to bring, and I will have delivered to Linda's office, the revised handbook that incorporates all the changes we've made to date. And if I can, I'm going to share my screen and put the handbook up there and go over where we kind of left off in some of the unresolved matters. So I'm gonna, okay, is that type big enough for you to see?
That's good there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This was an area that we talked about deleting, and I'm glad I saw Beth there since she's going to be a new board member coming on. Congratulations to her. On board member may improve their independent learning, their knowledge about general matters pertaining to related to public education. We last time said we were going to delete that, but then there was some discussion about maybe restoring it in some other version. And I wanted to get that on the table, and then we can go forward to where, or back to where we ended up. But thoughts on this? I don't think this is a bad statement. It's not a mandatory, it's an encouragement. And you might want to keep it or keep it in some other form. So I open that up for your discussion and consideration.
I don't remember where I stood on it the first time we went through. I like it in there just because it's a may, right? They may improve. And I don't know if there's much more that I have to say about it. It's like I'd be okay with it remaining in there. I'm okay with it.
How do others feel?
How the rest of you feel about it, whether keeping it or not.
It doesn't.
I was just gonna say I feel the same way. I hope I wasn't against it the first time, but I think with the May, there's no problem there. I think the only thing, if I were to add anything, it would be with the intent of sharing the knowledge through board meetings or something along those lines. You know, I don't want it to sound like you should go out and become smarter than everyone else. But if there's good things you find, there should be a venue, hopefully, to share it with everyone else.
I'm comfortable with leaving it in, but I'm not comfortable with the intention piece added to the end.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's like I'm good with it with restoring it. I mean, because I do think sometimes people just might want to. It's like, oh, you know what, I gotta bone up on this, or I gotta, do that, and other people might already know. Maybe people that have been on the board longer that, it's like to have to come back, and it feels like adding something beyond that sort of implies maybe there's even an onus upon that person who sought additional education to then report out on what they learned, and I'd rather we avoid that.
Laura, do you have feelings about this one?
I'm okay with it. I mean, the wording seems a little strange to me, but I think it's fine. I think it may read better to me by saying board members may improve their knowledge through independent learning about general matters related to public education.
Yeah.
I like that better.
Okay.
Good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we didn't like it the first time. See how I went first?
I think that's it.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Good suggestion, Laura. Okay. Are we okay with moving on then?
There's a nodding yes, Lou.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. this is where we left off, new ideas. We stopped here in the last session. And I want to give you an opportunity to read A through D, and then we can discuss it. This is an interesting one. I don't know where it came from. I've not seen this in other governance handbook. So it might reflect something that was going on at the time this handbook was adopted.
I don't know how I feel about B, that the board member would go ahead and prepare the agenda item or request it. I mean,
Yeah.
is that typical? I don't think that's not typical of our practice.
it's not.
Right? I mean that would really be staff who would, right? So.
Let me first raise the question. Does this add anything, and is it necessary?
I'll say again at the risk of being against the majority here, but item C to me is actually the opposite of my understanding. Is that to me, the board reports are supposed to be on activities within the district that others might have missed out on, not a spot to bring up new ideas per se. That those new ideas really should come up with under the future agenda items. So I think there could be some utility in saying new ideas should be brought up during future agenda items, not what's laid out in C personally.
Yeah, I'm a little bit, I guess I'm on in between for A. I think B and C don't make a whole bunch of sense. I agree with what Elliot's saying. I mean, we have a space during the meetings to suggest future agenda items. I don't think it's a bad idea to discuss it with the superintendent first. I mean, you're open to so many things, and I'm not saying that you're ever going to leave because you're not. But in the event that there's a different superintendent and that person is less open to ideas, then I would be thinking that maybe some things wouldn't make it to agenda. But, I say we have a space to do it now, so we just let it be, unless you have feedback about for yourself, if you would prefer what your preference is, Linda.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a need for this, and only because I think we have practices in place that really speak to, we have the future agenda items piece of it, which you all know you can bring that forward. I think, yes, it's great, that if you bring it ahead of time to me, but again, I don't know if that needs to be specified that, if you don't bring it ahead, I think, that's perfectly fine as well. So yeah, I mean, I think our practices in place already allow for all of those systems to be there, and the fact that even if you were to bring it forward to the superintendent and let's say it wasn't, then brought forward as an item, you'd still have that ability to bring it forward during,
Right, yeah.
Your future agenda items. Yeah.
I guess then looking at it, I mean, we already have space in the meeting to take care of this. So I would just, my opinion is just get rid of the whole new ideas. Personally.
I agree with Laura.
Yeah.
And Linda made the points about systems that we have in place as far as submitting an agenda item or members of the public being able to do that. We have those systems in place. And if there was something crazy I wanted to bring up ahead of time, just so I didn't freak you out in a meeting, I could run it by. If that was the choice, yeah. I could do without the whole new ideas section. I don't think it adds anything.
Elliot, what are you thinking?
Yep, I'm okay with that. I agree with everything that was said. I mean, as long as I think the first one, A falls under the no surprises. So I think again we're covering that
Yeah.
in our top 10 norms.
Okay. Sounds good.
Right.
All right.
Less words, good.
Okay. Visiting schools, and let's take a look at that and see what your feelings are about that.
Jumps out at me on this. Is F, just because it seems complicated if you got a kid in the district with an IEP and how that gets managed, but that's not been my experience, so I can't really speak to it. But if you're invited and it's your own child, does that seem a little clunky?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Brian, and I think maybe we want to clarify that this is in the capacity as a board member. If you're going to a school in the capacity of a parent, you follow the rules for parents.
So could we get away with just adding that to the heading? Visiting
Yeah.
schools in the capacity of a board member?
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I think F is strange that it talks about attending celebratory events and IEPs in the same sentence. That just seems really strange.
That is a
You know?
little weird for those to be lumped in
You lumped
together.
it. Yeah, it's just,
It's
Yeah,
a full day or an IEP.
yeah, it just seems butterfly bazaar or IEP.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Less words is fine with me to not add another letter. I just think it's a bit strange. Also for A, one full day prior, I mean, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I have not visited a school by myself in the capacity of a board member to tour by myself, because I don't think that I would really have a business to do that unless it was with the superintendent, because then I'm acting and speaking as 1/5 of a board, and I'm not interested in doing that. I don't think we even should be doing that.
So I'll give an example. I would be okay with a should for A, because I mean, speaking for myself, after the back to school breakfast, I was invited by a staff member to visit Forest Grove. And so I did that. It wasn't during school hours. So maybe it was a bit different, but I do think there are situations that might pertain where you do that. And I told Linda immediately after, but I didn't tell her a day before because I wasn't invited a day before. I was invited at the morning breakfast.
Can we just shorten it to say, as a professional courtesy, board members should notify the superintendent of scheduled school visits, period? I
how do
don't,
you feel?
I almost feel like A and B though contradict one another, right? Because I mean, if we're talking and again, I think I'm viewing this as, visiting schools during school time, during the school day when learning is in place, and you're maybe walking around with the principal, right? And I think, the expectation is if, that absolutely as board members you would, but it would then be, with the superintendent, and then, in that official capacity with it. So I don't know. I mean, it feels a little like to me A and B contradict each other a bit.
I mean, I guess we could add to A and say, maybe do like, as professional courtesy, board members should notify the superintendent of scheduled school visits. However, it is preferable for board members to visit schools with a superintendent
Or designee.
Yeah.
or designee.
Sometimes it's the principal that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that change?
I like that a lot.
Yeah, very much so.
Schedule and put a period here, Laura.
I don't know. Where are you?
In A after visits.
Or continue on to say, however, it is preferable.
Okay.
And removing the at least one full day prior, I think too, right?
Yeah. So period after visits.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you, I am working with a district where this is a serious issue. Thank you, Eric. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I was actually surprised how well it's going. This was the one area where I was most concerned about.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, big issue in district.
Really?
It's a big issue.
Right.
And I
Oh.
wanna go back and talk to you about the practicality here.
No.
Yeah.
There's times I wish I could just wear a disguise, even as a parent.
Yeah,
I don't even want anyone to know who I am.
it is a big deal.
It's Susie Otmar. I don't know, like.
Absolutely, you know it. But I think I'm gonna encourage you, and obviously it's your choice, but I'm gonna encourage you to leave the either shall or must instead of the should, because it can be, if it should, it's simply advisory.
Mhm.
And you're all on the board now, you don't know who you're gonna have on the future.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you might want to point out to somebody in the future that, look, if you're gonna you're gonna show up and tour, you really need to, and you must notify the superintendent, because it changes the dynamics of what's going on the site.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is a huge issue in school districts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You-
You're saying will,
Must.
must, will, or shall?
I'd leave in the must or shall.
Okay.
I would leave
Yeah.
that in there. Let's change that to it.
Yeah, and Elliot, that assumes that in most circumstances, you have more than a few minutes' notice. That's not gonna cover everything, but I think it'll cover most situations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I see the word scheduled there too. I mean, if there's I mean, that also implies though that an unscheduled school visit is okay.
right.
And were you guys okay by putting the superintendent or designee?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Superintendent. How about superintendent, designee, or in the company, the site administrator?
Well, I think that the superintendent designee could be the site administrator, but there may be a reason why the superintendent would not want that, for example. So I like superintendent designee standing because that could include the administrator, but maybe the administrator has a really busy day that day and
Yeah,
they don't want the board member requesting that administrator.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it's Josh, or we go with Josh or something
Right,
like that.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we okay with the rest of this? I thought E was a bit strange in IEPs because really you can't be at other IEP and parent teacher conferences. Those are private things between the teacher and the parent and staff.
There, I would assume it's in there because it's happened at some point.
It must have happened that somebody felt maybe they were a special ed teacher and thought that they, as a board member, could offer some assistance, but it would be totally inappropriate for a board member to sit on either of those two things.
I'm wondering how the other board members feel too about putting something in there, maybe under A, that when visiting a site that we display proper credentials too. It's like we all have our badges, and I think it makes it easier for people that are working on campus to know that we belong there.
Ryan, what's the practice in the district in terms of visitors coming on campus?
I mean, Everyone has to sign in, and in fact now, you know, we haven't rolled it out yet, but we're about to. The whole visitor badging system, that's that electronic system where everyone, you know, will need to for staff and trustees, you know, they've got their ID on them. They should be we should all be wearing it when we go, and then they just sign in, you know, at the front when they get there. Yeah, but everyone signs in.
So with the new protocol, then that will kind of address what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the desire of the board of including the credential display or not?
I think we have another section in the handbook that talks about wearing our badges when we're on campus. And I don't remember clearly, but I think we did have some sort of a discussion, so I'm not sure if we covered it there. I
Okay,
don't have it in front of me, so I don't know.
I mean, it may be important to sort of call out that, well, I mean, it says visiting schools as a board member, but to call out that you wouldn't wear your badge if you're like, if I'm going to back to school night.
Yeah.
I'm in the capacity of a parent. But then,
Right,
I mean, you
right.
could actually say, I'm not wearing my badge. I don't know, or whatever.
No, you're right.
Because
I
people
agree.
do want, I mean, they want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Uh,
I see the other side of that too. Yeah.
So I don't know, it might be worth even repeating there. I don't know, Jen, how you feel about it,
Yeah.
but I mean, I know gets wordy, but
Either one.
but I don't know how to word it. So Lou?
let me.
Can I also just make a suggestion though, as
Oh,
those
yeah,
writing the
Elliot,
list?
sorry.
Well, no apologies needed. Just that if we have the new badging system, I mean, I would almost argue that the badging system or your official badge serve in that same capacity. So I would say everybody on site is going to have to wearing badges. So I'm less concerned now with putting it in than I would have been in the past, if that makes sense. You know, and again, it comes to that point. What happens if you show up to a school site, you forgot your badge? Does that mean, okay, sorry, I got to cancel my meeting? Or do you just go to the iPad and print it out and slap it on?
Yeah.
And then you've covered that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly that. Mhm.
That's why I put
In the
should.
practice, and when we go to sites, if you don't have your badge, you just get a visitor sticker and then sign in and go about whatever you needed to.
I put the word should display rather than mandatory to allow for people who might forget it on occasion.
Well, I like that. Is everybody with that?
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Okay, we good with this section? Move on.
Sounds like it.
Okay. All right, handling concerns or complaints from the public and staff. Let's take a look at this section and let me know when you want me to move up. Or we can deal with A, B, and C. Well, it might be good to know what the whole thing says.
Thoughts?
Yes.
I don't have anything jumping out at me in this.
I know Carolyn had concerns about this reference in other areas. I don't know if that's a concern for you, for the rest of the board.
I don't think we've discussed it. I guess I'm not familiar with the 6 Rs unless I heard it at CSBA.
Yeah, I
It
had.
didn't. didn't
Flipped it
stick.
further down.
But I don't know if it really, I mean, those feel like reasonable steps, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it may just not be necessary to refer to them. I just leave it as the 6 Rs and then list the 6 Rs.
Yeah, if we wanted to get nitpicky about it, I could say, we encourage the use of California School Board Association 6 Rs. It's a nice guideline to help us through because it's good advice
I
as
like
you look
that.
through that.
I prefer that because
Yeah.
quite honestly, I mean, if I receive information from someone in the public, I'd do my best, but I'm not gonna hit every
Yeah.
R. And it might get a little weird,
Well,
right?
Like a little
repeating
laminate,
back and like,
it's a little laminate thing in our wallet for.
yeah. So
I
that's,
have 4 of those.
so you're so
Over
approachable.
the last 2 hours. But I like that, yeah, we encourage the use. I like that.
I almost think you have to have the California School Board Associations in order as kind of the overlying body of where the 6 Rs came from.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the comment I was just going to bring up, and this is higher up in there, I don't see it living now. Do we want to have, and I bring this up for discussion, not because I have a very strong opinion, but do we want to have internal vetting of potential knowledge conflict of interests, if that makes sense? This was something just, that might come up in a complaint, like if my best friend was a complainant. Do we want to make it part of the governance that that's something that gets disclosed to the rest of the board?
I think it should, unless the person needs to remain anonymous for some reason, but I mean, it probably should be disclosed. I don't know.
Lou,
Yeah, I
can you remind us the law on disclosing conflicts of interest with other board members? Just so
yeah,
we're on the same page.
well, the conflicts of interest laws pertain, there are 3 areas. The one that immediately comes to mind is the conflict of interest codes, where you have a financial interest in something. If you have a friend who is bringing a complaint to you, legally that is not a conflict of interest. Okay, it may be a moral conflict for you, but it's not a legal conflict of interest. And it's within your discretion to determine whether or not you can be even-handed and objective on it.
Right, but that's why I wanted to bring it up under governance, because this isn't the legality of it. This is, do we want as a board that to be a policy or a procedure?
Yeah.
'Cause I agree completely with the understanding legality. I just,
Yeah.
given this, I could see this coming up. I think it would be a useful thing for us to weigh in on as a whole.
I think my first thought is it's concerning because it feels like we're gonna start gossiping about people if we're saying, I know so-and-so in closed session and you know so-and-so, how close is your relationship? And I worry about how conversations like that amongst us in closed session could impact the integrity of potential investigations or influence potential investigations if a board member is saying, that's my best friend, or I really don't like so-and-so, I've heard all these rumors. It really, I feel like, opens the door to trouble for us. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Even if it's legal, I'm not comfortable with it.
I would say that, I mean, if we're talking specifically about divulging, if my best friend came to me with a concern, I think it's different to divulge or to say that in closed session, to say, hey, you know what, transparency, this is my best friend. And it's just information for everybody to have. That doesn't mean that I can say, and she's, because I don't think that, I feel like that's not opening up gossip. I feel like it's stating a fact. My best friend came to me with this complaint. I just want you to know it's a valid complaint, but she's a friend of mine. Or our kids are in school together, or we walk every Sunday. I just want you guys to know that, but this is just so that there's some perspective there, because I think it would feel a little disingenuous for someone to come forward with a complaint and then someone finds out, hey, did you know that they walk together every Sunday? It would sort of mitigate the gossiping, in my opinion. I feel like it might have the opposite effect, actually.
I'm going to intervene at this
Okay.
point. The reason I'm going to intervene is I'd like to stick with the law on a conflict of interest because
Okay.
when you deviate from the law, what if it's an uncle that I don't like? Or what if it's my neighbor that I had a conflict with? What degree creates the conflict? And those things that are outside the law really become moral issues for individuals to grapple with. Are you and not others, it might be a neighbor, but it's a neighbor that I'm not friendly with or don't know that well or don't walk with, or it might be somebody I've walked with, but now I've had a falling out with, and I've got to decide should I be involved or not. I tend to think those personal decisions remain with the individual, and when you try to set up rules around it, you're going to fall into a quagmire of where's the line going to be?
Okay, I suppose my mind went away from conflict of interest and just more of like information for the board. So I guess maybe that doesn't even belong in here then. Yeah, my mind went off tangent, I guess, or onto a tangent or whatever, however I would say that. So
It might be an issue where, well, I think that so-and-so is friends with this person who's complaining. I'll talk to that person about it. It appears to me, I think you're a friend with that person. Should you really be involved? This is a matter, rather than trying to come up with hard and fast rules.
okay, I mean, I'm cool with it. I just I think it might alleviate some small town
Yeah.
small town gossipiness that, could happen
Well, I think
just because it's
I'm
such a
glad
small space.
that we're talking about it because it's like, it reminds me of a conversation that we had about serial meetings as it relate, within the Brown Act, right? And even though when we were playing by the rules, it's like, all right, so, I could talk to Jen, and I mean, this is the way I interpret the law, at least, is that I could talk to Jen about something, and then I could talk to you about it, and so long as they didn't say what Jen told me, getting Jen's viewpoint on something, and then I asked, it's like, what's your viewpoint? That's within I'm not breaking the law. But as Lou had advised us, it's like, it's still not necessarily a good look.
Mhm.
And I think that this is sort of parallel to that, where it's like, all right, so we're not breaking the law. We're not violating any kind of conflict of interest rules, but it's like if I have somebody over for Thanksgiving dinner, and then their heads on the chopping block, as an employee in the district, it's like, and that's an extreme situation, but it could happen. It's like, I feel like I should divulge that information. And so, but where does that fall in the continuum? I don't know. And maybe it's not a rule within the handbook, but more a suggestion that we should endeavor to reveal conflicts of interest that may be impactful. But I don't know how we word that. It's getting really into the weeds on something like that,
Yeah, and I would agree with Lou in the sense of, in order to at least limit your exposure from a legal perspective, that you use the legal framework as your guidelines. And then as other things come up, there's practices that you can have, but it's very difficult to litigate things and not give exposure to the board that are not actually covered by the law.
So then would it be appropriate to just sort of have a general agreement amongst
Yes.
board members to say like, hey, if, it'd be nice to divulge amongst each other if this is your friend that's getting up and speaking, or if this is, I don't know, whatever.
Just to be specific, that is what I'm not trying to get to the legality, but that's what I was trying to get to is is it something we want to have as a governance that if you have an interest above and beyond being a member of the board, is that something we want to share with each other in a closed session, regarding an issue? That's
This may be a may. You may do that.
Oh, in here. Oh,
Yeah, that's, you may do that. Yes, yes.
okay.
So
Yeah.
are you suggesting we add something that says board members are encouraged to disclose potential conflicts?
And maybe we don't use the word conflict. Sorry, just given the discussion. Go ahead.
Well, I like are encouraged to share, impactful, those are the words I think I'm looking for, is that we're encouraged to share, potential conflicts of interest that could be impactful as it relates to the decisions that we make. That's a lot of words. It's a lot of, but I don't hate it.
Can we put in there, moral or otherwise, or is that too much of a stretch? Because it really is the moral conflict of interest that we're talking about, right? I mean,
I would vote against removing conflicts of interest just because that gets back to legal. I would just say potential relationships.
I'm not comfortable with this being in here. I
At
think
all.
we have to stay, no, I think we have to stay within the confines of the law, because even just hearing Brian say, encouraged to share impactful, as much as I think I know what you're saying, it just gets really blurry if anybody reads that and then has to decide like where, like you said, where's the line? I don't know either.
Yeah.
It's just, it gets muddy, and I don't want to put us in a muddy situation with regard to a potential investigation or HR or a PR crisis or something like that. So if we just keep it clean and stick to what the law allows, that for me is like, and at the same time, we all are independent people who are required by the law to divulge certain things to each other. So
Yeah.
we have to play by the rules, as far as that goes. And the rest of it is kind of like up to you as an independent thinker to decide how close to the line it is, or what's going to impact you when you're, contributing to conversations or decisions.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's kind of case by case. So it's really hard to draw just a clear, hard line on.
I totally get how it can very easily get sticky, and there might be something else through all of this as to how we just conduct ourselves as board members too. As upstanding citizens or upstanding board members, that maybe is kind of that sort of catch-all.
Umbrella kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's tricky. As much as I would like to have something in there too. Again, it's like we could water it down to the point where it has no teeth, and it kind of has to have no teeth anyway. I don't know how we do it.
I would suggest that staying within the law is the best. And if there are concerns that a board member's decision-making may be influenced by personal matters, that's something you can talk to each other about. Bring it up and discuss it. Put it on the table when you're in the decision-making process.
Okay. What's everybody else thinking?
I personally would prefer that there is a written expectation. But because that could get a little salty in closed session, to look at somebody and say, wasn't that your friend? Did you not blah, 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 or, however you even say it, it could be taken in a very defensive way. Whereas I think if it's spelled out even slightly that the expectation is there, that we would not do anything to sort of sway one way or the other, or sway people one way or the other based off of like who our friend group is or whatever. I see the value in having it in there. I also see that it could get a little bit sticky, but if it's are encouraged to, I mean, that doesn't strike legal lingo with me. I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't sound like.
And what about if we put it more, are encouraged to share relationships that may influence their decision? Because I guess part of the thing is I agree there's this line issue, but I think part of the goal is just to say, like, you know what, like I personally, this is what I would do in the situation, is say like, hey, my kid had this teacher last year, or my kid is going to have this teacher next year, and so I'm concerned about this situation. I just want to let everybody know that's where I'm coming from. But I don't think it has to be a must. Sorry, and I think I jumped on top of you, Linda. You're about to say something.
No, that's okay. I was interrupting you anyway, so thanks, Elliot. But I was just pointing out that, it's on my page 12, Lou, I don't know what page it is on yours, but under board meeting preparation and attendance, there is a statement that reads, board members do not undertake independent inquiries or investigations that could create conflict of interest or compromise the integrity of the board or district. I wonder if that covers enough of what we're trying, to say how that's already stated in the handbook. I mean, I know it refers to conflict of interest, Lou, which, you were trying to avoid, but I mean, that is already in there.
Yeah. What's the heading for that?
It's board meeting preparation and attendance. It's on my page 12. I think it's further up if you keep it. Yeah. Yeah. So it's E. If you scroll down a little further. Yeah.
Laura, does this address your concern?
What is the title of that section?
Oh, under E.
It's weird because it's in a board meeting preparation and attendance.
I'll be honest. I personally thought it was different because I'm really thinking about the previous one was dealing with complaints, right? And that's to me where it's like if you're dealing with a complaint, that to me is when you want to be able to say, as a board member, here are my concerns. Where so everyone's aware. Here's what may be affecting my views. But the other assumption, and I know this has been brought up in the past too, which I'm also okay with, is that if we do not recuse ourselves, that is a board member stating that any relationships are not having an influence on their decision. That's also fine with me too, if that's more we wanted to do, which is more in the decision making, not necessarily the board preparation part.
Does this work for everyone?
I don't think I'm comfortable putting that in there. Board members are encouraged to disclose personal relationships that may influence their decision making. Isn't that, aren't we all sitting up here with the ability to decide whether or not those relationships are going to cause a conflict, and then that's when we bring them to the rest of the board's attention? I'm just trying to understand kind of like what we're getting to with this. Maybe I'm not clear. Like what's the benefit for the board of going beyond what the law is prescribing just in this situation?
I think it helps to sort of, personal opinion here, but it sort of helps to point a moral compass. And I'm a fan of that being in there. I think that there's nothing harmful in that. And if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. If it doesn't apply to me, it doesn't apply to me. But if there comes a situation where it does apply to somebody and it's in here, it would be helpful.
One option, sorry, I know I'm still word something, but would it be personal relationships to the superintendent that may influence? I mean, I just wonder if we want to put some bounds on that, because I'm not right. I could see this being read as like a public disclosure, which was not the point of, at least from my perspective.
That gets slippery though, because then we're involving Linda, and what level of relationship do we call it? Like friend, dinner, Thanksgiving, and now she's part of the loop of determining whether you have a conflict or can make a decision in a neutral enough way.
I don't think it excludes somebody from making a decision. It's simply providing information. I think it's important for other board members to know. I would say board members are encouraged to disclose. It's mainly to disclose to other board members. And I think that it really would help to, it's just transparency. I think that's an important part of our role too, is to sort of be transparent with one another, especially in closed session where, it's just important that we're all honest and clear with each other. And I think that that's
Well, right
It should
now-
go without saying, but
Yeah.
I think that it's okay to be said.
I mean, right now, the way it reads, it's not a must, it's not a shall, it's an encouraged. So it gives plenty of leeway if somebody doesn't want to do that, doesn't feel comfortable doing it, and I could see where there might be reasons why they might not feel comfortable, because the relationship or the not, it's like the relationship might be based on some really, really personal information too that they don't want to disclose. And so it's if we have it as encouraged, but it's not a must or a shall, I think it gives everybody a certain amount of leeway to do still what is what they think is best. Do we have to have it? No, not necessarily. Is it nice to have it in there? I would say, yeah, it is. Just as a reminder, we've got a lot of stuff in here that is, not absolutely essential, but that serves as a reminder or as a compass for us to just try to stay on track with some of these things too, without tying anybody to it. So
I guess,
What,
oh, go ahead.
I
Oh,
was just saying one other thing. There's another little minor one, but to me, this needs to go back up a little higher. We're next to complaints, because I was really viewing this in the air of like closed session complaint adjudication. This is not a like every meeting a board member stands up and says, "Hey, here are the things that we're dealing with."
Everyone I had dinner with this week.
The whole section is concerns or complaints.
Yeah, I know, but is it the last part at the end there starts getting into like using the R's when talking to the public? I guess I would move this more up to when we're talking more about closed door proceedings, which was I think B and C kind of. So I guess that's why I would say if we do have it, to me it needs to be more in that vein than like personally.
Yeah.
Because the last ones are more on communication. But I will just to say, and then Jen, I'll go to you. I feel the same way. I wanted to bring this up because I felt it was important for us to discuss it, but I'm happy to go with the overall view of the board. I don't feel this has to be in here. I just wanted us to discuss it to make sure we were, at least aware. And Jen, sorry to again interrupt you.
no, it's okay. We're remote. It's fun. I appreciate you bringing it up and I appreciate the discussion. I think I just want us to be careful, because we have to maintain our integrity in closed session, and we also have to be able to trust each other in closed session. And if we're constantly, or if we're, saying like, well, what about your friends? What about your friends? That's not going to create, or do you have a conflict? Or I'm going to push you about that because I think you do. It's just not really going to create an environment of like trust and comfort and people bringing those things forward. So I think that's why it's kind of up to us individually to have the personal autonomy to like gauge, when we're getting close and when we're not, and also to assess as individuals, like, hey, how am I thinking about this? Is this influencing me? Do I need to take a step back? I mean, it's more like a point of self-reflection than I have to come and say, Brian, I had dinner with a teacher. She's been my neighbor for 10 years, but I still think I can do this job. I don't know if that adds anything to the discussion. If anything, sometimes I think it muddies the water because now you're talking about personal connections when there's like an HR complaint coming on that didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not straightforward, so, yeah.
I'm gonna, in the interest of time and efficiency, I'm going to remind you, this is a compact that you're making with each other. And as such, it's something that it's not a majority vote. It is all of you saying, yes, I'm gonna live by this. And if there's anything in here that you can't say that to, then it needs to be out. Because it's a commitment you're making.
I'm okay. If if you're not comfortable with it in there and you could go either way about it. And Elliot, sounds like you could go either way. I'm fine with it not being in there. I'm fine with all of us just having an understanding that we trust each other and that we're transparent no matter what. So I don't think it needs to be in writing. That was a quick delete, Lou.
I know our time is limited and I want to make.
Moving on. So anyway, yeah.
Okay.
That's great. And I just want to put a little tagger on it too. I think that it's like this discussion that we're having now, and I imagine they'll continue long after I'm on the board. It's like if these discussions continue like this, then that doesn't need to be in there because we're having really frank,
Yeah.
honest discussions with each other about it. And I think everybody's being honest with each other about where we want this to be. And so it's, you know, this kind of solves that, I think, too. You know, so, and if something does come up in the future, I expect somebody will say, well, just wait a second here, and it'll get addressed. So, and I think your advice, Lou, is really sage advice too. It's like, if we're not all unanimous on it, and I know you already deleted it anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah, okay. Good. Media relations. Let's take a look at this and see if there's anything here. We've made progress on a whole 2 pages here, so. And just for clarity, what is our time? What time are we trying to?
Well, I mean, you know, we're scheduled till 10, but obviously we'd like to
Okay,
before then. But remember, I think I, you know, scooted ahead. I mean, from page 17 on, right? That's just kind of the language and sort of appendix. So I think we've only got like officially sort of maybe 3 more pages to go through, right?
yeah.
Actual language, yes. But yeah, I mean, if we could end before then, that would be wonderful. And then we've also got to review our 4 goals as well, right? But that'll.
Okay. Let's take a look at media relations and see if these are things that you can live with.
I like this section as it stands, almost 100% personally. I'm not just trying to go fast. I mean that honestly.
Yeah. How do others feel it?
I agree with you, Elliot. So if that's a gauge of how fast we're going, the slow person over here would like to move forward with this too, because it's clear and concise, and I think it makes sense.
You have
Laura?
a vote from another slowpoke. Yes.
Yep. Good.
We're good? Okay. All right, official board correspondence. I'm gonna put this together so can. Okay, is there any issue with this one?
Nope. No.
No issue.
Anybody? Okay. Vacancies on the Board of Trustees. Meeting. I think that's pretty much what the law requires, but any discussion on this one?
No.
No.
Brian? I mean,
No.
Elliot, are you okay?
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. I'm on to the orientation already. I like these.
Laura?
Oh yeah, I'm good. All good.
Jen's good?
It's good, Lou.
Okay, thank you. Orientation. Anything on the orientation for? Looks pretty standard.
We get to do orientation this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Congratulations, you're gonna have new board. Anybody want to discuss that section or I'll move on?
No. Oh,
I'll be sorry, a little difficult. I just want to say, like, I don't know if it'd be useful to try to say something about where people. Yeah, I don't think it needs to be formal, but just where people can go for information, because I think it's really overwhelming as a new board member when they read this. They're like, great, I'm going to go to orientation. I'm going to learn everything I need to learn. And that's clearly not what happens. It takes a lot longer. So I'm just wondering if there's a way, again, maybe it doesn't have to be added here, but just a way for us to think about how do we get new board members up to speed with what's going on.
Yeah. The next section talks about the board convening an orientation meeting. And we should talk about that because I don't know if you actually do that. I don't know any districts that actually do that.
No, we tend to use the CSBA new board member training. I think that's been our approach to A, right?
There has been also, I think we did this, we met with staff, like cabinet level staff, kind of in just an informal meet and greet type of situation, but I think more formal, like structured information would be really, really valuable, like the sooner the better for people who may be, in line.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did one in
Yes,
2020. Also during COVID where it was online in that at least all the superintendent and all the key cabinet members, we were all online together and there was a Q&A for that, but that was still sort of impromptu, right?
yeah.
So the
So-
board saying that they would like to have this section actually implemented as a
Yes.
practice?
I think so.
Please.
I like it. Yeah. I mean, it's,
Okay.
and Beth, you had something. Did you want to add something?
That in there. Somehow other boards got away from it. But what you're doing right now is what you should be doing as an orientation for new board.
Okay.
Because really, you're doing something for 3.5 months. Technically, because once you get new board members on, it's a new board. And everybody's gotta be on board with, just like saying, who do you all agree with this? Well, now you got 2 people that haven't had their say, so you're gonna do it again.
We're gonna get good at it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
the way that they learn, then they learn, you're training them
Yeah.
and they're part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think about when I first came on, it was really a year of just like, what are we doing now? What is this? Why do we do it that way? And it's like my first term, it was just like I had learned something new every meeting. There was no orientation at all that first time around. It's like what? So yeah, I mean, and we should get it somewhere on the calendar even.
Well, we do, so we have a governance session that second, I think it's almost the week after our official voting in and swearing in of trustees. So I think we would just call that our orientation,
Yeah.
right, meeting and governance orientation, and just plan for that, right? I mean, powerful.
And could we have a closed session orientation at that same time? Where it's like, here are the things that are going on? Or is that too much?
Oh, you could have a closed session only on those items that are appropriate for closed session.
Exactly. I'm just saying, like, here are the items. These are the closed session items the board is dealing with right now. Because
Yeah.
again, I just feel like there were times where I was like,
Sure.
whoa, where did this came out of left field? Why is this happening? So yeah, not a closed session orientation, sorry.
Yeah.
But just focusing on those items to get the new board members up to speed with the things that are facing the district.
Yeah.
Well, and I think anticipating that the first, at least good handful of closed sessions we should maybe give more time so that things can be explained thoroughly, because it really was hard to grasp in the beginning. I don't know if you felt the same way, or both of you, but especially with closed session, because your head's sort of spinning with all of the information. There was a lot going on when we came in. So it's
Providing context.
and that takes time.
Yeah,
So
it
it's,
Yes.
anyway, yeah.
That sheet too of all the acronyms. Everybody should get that. Like, yeah, absolutely right. I looked at it the last week. It's like 10 pages of acronyms. It's absolutely insane.
Well, I'm not hearing any changes that need,
No.
is that correct? Is there, okay.
No, it just sounds like we need to actually implement
Okay.
what's there.
Yeah.
Section is avoiding appearances and proprieties and appearances.
Okay, I have questions about this.
Yeah.
So I know I technically always wear my board hat unless I'm a parent, but what if I'm just a person that's throwing a party and I wanted to invite Linda to my wing off? Because you live around, I'm just making this up now, but we do have a wing off, so anyway, you know that about me. But
Eric, say more about the wings.
Yeah, I'm now so hurt that I'm not
10
invited to
people,
your
there's
wing off.
it's been a little while, but there is a plaque. There's a rubber chicken that hangs from it. It's very exciting. I win almost every year. Anyway, so let's just say though I throw a party. It's not the wing off, it's the Super Bowl party, and I want to invite somebody that is on staff, say, or administrative staff. If we're not discussing board business, is it inappropriate? I mean, is that something that, I guess, Lou, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to stifle myself socially because I'm a board member. I mean, that seems a little unfair.
These are standards that the board has imposed on itself. It is not illegal for you to have personal friendships and personal relationships. It's not illegal for you to invite your child's teacher to your home, or the superintendent. So doing any of these things is not a legal issue. I don't know why this is here. It's here. A previous board felt it was appropriate to have these limitations. And it's really now up to you to decide, do you want to live by these standards?
I don't. Throw that out there.
You as a former superintendent, I would have been in trouble. There's no way with this. I would've-
Yeah, I don't, how does everyone else feel? I would like to get rid of it.
I'm comfortable with that.
In a
Yeah,
town
I'm
this
fine as
size
well.
too, right?
Just small town, right? I think we wouldn't be able to have relationships with anyone.
Except C, right? We don't want that one. That one should stay, right?
Oh, that C's fine.
You should
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
it's just B you were talking. And
And
A and B, yeah.
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 Are you all okay? Is there anybody not okay with deleting this? Okay.
B.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. There's a part of me, just a very small part of me, that wants to keep it, but have it be more of a like should. But at the same time, like I agree with deleting it. I just want to, there is that part where like I worry about the situation where we get it. Maybe like 4 members of the board are continually having parties, and then one board member always gets left out, and that just makes me think back to 3rd grade dodgeball or something. But I'm okay deleting it. I just want to voice my past trauma, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm hugging you from here, Elliot. You'll be invited. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah, well, before we delete it, let's think it through and the consequences. How would you all feel if one of you had a party and invites Linda, and one other board member and nobody else on the board?
Well, now I'm back in 3rd grade with Elliot.
So it wouldn't bother me. I wouldn't care because everybody can have their own deal as long as it doesn't enter here and as long as they're not discussing board information. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that we can
It
really
doesn't bother
dictate.
me.
It's
You're all okay. I want to make sure you're all okay in deleting it. Nobody wants to keep any part of it.
Nope, I'm okay. I think as long as we're keeping the other things that we've already agreed to in mind, I'm fine with it.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sounds like we got everybody.
Are there any other improprieties or appearances that you want to add to this? Is there anything that comes to mind that has been a problem? I just want to give you enough time to think about it so that
Not for me.
okay. I'm not hearing any, so we'll just move on to and then this is we're there. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Advice is necessary. Review this agreement during the. Well,
Do-
this will need
do
to
we-
change.
Is it okay for, do we want to, I'm sorry to do this again, but do we want to ping Beth quickly in the room about the impropriety as well, just to see if she has thoughts? I think this is one we do want to, again, I'm okay with deleting these two, but I'm just want to make sure we're not missing an opportunity to, again, increase our adherence to transparency.
Well, yes, I do have an opinion on C. Because,
that was back.
we did that as part of our whole collective bargaining training. And it was great. So I would say board members will, only sit on collective bargaining meetings if it is part of the training they ascribe to or something like that.
Or to observe or something
No,
like, not,
Not to observe.
Not to
It was-
observe.
We,
It was-
we participated.
you did.
Well, with the approval of the rest of the board or something like that, if decided upon by the rest of the board.
Yes, yes, of course, the whole board bought into.
The whole board bought into the training that we were using, where the board members, Jesse and I, sat in on CSBA, and we sat in on the teachers' negotiations. Worked out well. You know why? Because it's always about the teachers and CSBA or CSEA thinking that somehow what they really care about is not being transmitted to the board through admin. So they wanted the board members there so that they could tell them to their faces, this is what we care about, this is where we are, and, it all worked out. It was good.
Exactly why I don't want a board member in negotiations. That's exactly why I wouldn't want a board member sitting in on negotiations, is because we have representatives that then come to speak to the board, just like you wouldn't bring in all however many 100+ employees we have into the room as well. It's like we have the board or the district, admin has their representatives. We have great representatives, and teachers, or whether it's the PGTA or CSEA, they have their representatives too. And I'm a big believer in allowing those people. I get what you're saying, because we hear that from the teachers. It's like, we don't think that you're hearing what we're saying, but I trust our representatives to deliver that information, and that's been a trust that years too. I get it, but I don't want board members in there during negotiations. That's an imbalance as I see it. It's like it's weird.
System. We were using a system.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, hey, this time let's just have board members go in there. It
Yeah.
wasn't like that. It was a training that we all followed, and we all followed this model. It was something like a win-win, but it wasn't win-win.
Mhm.
And so we all followed this model to and we have facilitator. So it was, and it was all agreed to. It wasn't, it was a board decision.
Mhm.
So this would be a board decision.
Yeah.
Can I just suggest this seems like something where if Brian's against and Beth is for, this might be something to revisit in our next acceptance of compact.
Maybe so. Maybe that's the way to approach
Could
it.
you maybe just speak to it? I mean, the way I've always seen it and understood it is that process. I mean, you really don't want trustees in there. I mean, it is a little bit of there's a separation, right? The way I've understood it. I'm so glad it clearly worked out well, right? But I could also see the potential for it not, and I think it may just depend on the year and who's involved with it.
And the timing of it all.
Right. I feel so good about it's one of the first things I heard about when I took on this position was just talking about trust, right? But just the relationships that I think we've worked so hard to build with both of our, bargaining units. And
Say that's because.
Yeah.
I would
Well,
like to say.
no,
that.
maybe that's so, but you're right. And so,
Because
yeah,
Then it changed, how the representatives felt about working with the board and trusting the admin, changed the whole deal.
yeah, yeah.
So
And
it's still, you still have to work on it. It's not like magic, but
sure, yeah, always, right? That's true.
yeah, you always have to work on it.
Lou, do you want to speak to it one way or the other? I'm curious what you're thinking.
Yeah, I've been doing this business for a long time and have been doing labor negotiations for a very long time. And I think we started out with the notion that it is not a good idea to have a board member in negotiations because it changes the dynamics, it changes the focus, it becomes a distraction. I have since come to modify my views. And I think that I would answer the question with, it depends on the situation. I have had situations where it was very helpful to have a board member at the table. And I've had situations where it's been an enormous challenge to have a board member at the table and slowing the process down. So it really depends on dynamics in an individual district, the union, the players. So there isn't a hard and fast rule that I would now say absolutely this or absolutely that, because the absolutes generally don't work. But we're going to have new board members on, and I think that Elliot had a point. I'm going to suggest that we've done a lot of good work here, and things that we've reached a point where I think you can agree upon this. And you have two new people who are coming on who haven't seen this at all, haven't seen the changes, haven't agreed to anything. And I would suggest that maybe we finalize this, that we take it, we not ignore the work that we've done. We've done a lot of good work, and I think it's worth carrying forward. But I suggest that it be finalized perhaps the beginning of the year with the two new members reviewing it and saying, yes, they can agree to all these things. Because remember, it's a compact you're making with each other. And if the new board members are not part of this discussion at all and haven't signed on to this, they're not bound by it. And they don't know anything about it.
Mhm.
So we have made a lot of progress, but I think there's one more step, and that is to get a commitment from the new board members on what they can live with and what's in here. That's my advice.
Lou, I respect that for sure. I've not had the experience of having a board member as a part of the process yet. In order for that to happen, I think, Beth, you made the most salient point was everybody was trained.
Yeah.
And so until everybody is trained, I would vote against having the board as a part of it. If the board chooses, for example, in December or in January to revisit it and get a sense of what was the protocol, the program that was used, the board can decide to do that. But until that point, I would say that you don't include the board in the process, because it does, in some cases, if you don't have the training, it would automatically usurp the district employees. There's no reason for the union to talk to Linda, because they could talk to the board directly and negotiate with the board, because they're negotiating with. If there's a training behind it, then that could be something totally different. But until that point happens and there's a decision to have the training, I suggest that the board not be a part of it.
One thing, if you modify this at all, the only thing I would put in it would be to add that unless agreed upon by the entire board. So if the entire board agrees on that, then that's what the board directs. But
And I'm gonna ask a question because I don't know much about collective bargaining. I would not be the one that would be sitting at that table because I would need a lot of training. But is this something that we would want to get the opinion of talk to the union about, because I mean, we would want their perspective too. Cause if we're just training board members and we're showing up uninvited, I mean, I could see how that would send a real strange message. So I would think they would have to be sort of a communal decision if they weren't being heard or, you know, is that?
It wouldn't even happen that way.
Um,
It would have to be the two parties are
Coming together.
and saying, look, we need to do it differently because it hasn't been working the way we've been doing it. And that was the reason.
I see. Okay.
And typically, if not mistaken, the board will make that decision first, that we want to explore.
Yeah.
Going through that program, then you would invite
Yeah.
the union in after the board has made that conscious decision as a board that, you know, maybe we need to look at some alternatives to the way we're doing negotiations, collective bargaining.
Yeah, and so I
It just
wonder about,
Depends on the players.
Yeah, it does. 100%. I agree.
and I would even maybe, it says even if invited, maybe we just say if invited. You know, because I mean, I want to make sure that everyone's on board with it.
Well, if we were gonna change it, the only thing I would recommend is something like that. Like adding this, but I,
Lou, take the even out and even if invited. Lou, by putting it in there, are you entertaining that's a possibility?
well, I'm only,
Sorry, I'm just kind of throwing it out.
yeah, generally, I don't like to have a board member there. Generally, it's not a good idea.
And that's why I mean, my preference would just be to leave it out for now. And then, you know, I think how Beth, you've described, I mean, it came about because things were not working. And I think if things are working and we're hearing, okay, this process is, I mean, I think this is something we revisit in that event, right? We know there's a past practice that we can point to in the event, things do, start going south. But yeah, I don't know if it's necessary for us to.
Just remove it all.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, I guess we could remove it altogether or just leave it as it was with C, just leave that one in and then we know we're going to be reviewing this again when, next year, and that's something we could come back to then, but.
Well, I feel like if it's not common practice, it's not,
Why
we don't even need to
have it.
point to it really. I don't know. And if it comes up later, but I don't,
Well, there you go.
I'm a fan of just getting rid of it and just completely getting rid of it. I don't know how anyone else feels, but.
What would maybe propose is, because that means we're removing all three of them, maybe we leave the title as a placeholder in the event, it's just that reminder of something. Is there ever anything else we want to, ever add here as we, proceed?
I would suggest if we leave the title, we have some quick sentence, because otherwise it's like, here's what we're doing to avoid improprieties, blank. I just think we need to have at least a sentence that the board will work together to avoid improprieties and appearances thereof. Something just generic like that, because
Or is it also phrased in such a negative way that it kind of sounds like, I mean, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, the assumption.
Yes, sir.
It's like the assumption is there might be something nefarious going on and we're trying to avoid that rather than we all know our roles and responsibilities and are abiding by those, like the positive association. So I'm okay with getting rid of it for now.
You've got legal standards about improprieties. And if you don't have anything regarding appearances, I don't know what the point is of having a placeholder.
Can I ask a question? Beth, I was going to ask you a question. Is it, if this is okay, and you can say no, of course, or somebody else can shout out. That's not a good question to ask. But if For appearances, I mean, because you've been watching us as a board, so is there any appearance that you would say like, hey, we might want to call this out because you're giving the impression of blankety blank? Because it's not really feedback that we get from anybody, and we're having to be self-reflective, and a lot of times we see ourselves in a way that other people don't see us, we just talked about. So, I mean,
You mean just how you're performing at the board meeting?
well, just if there's an appearance of impropriety happening, like at the board meeting, if you, I mean, I'm putting you on the spot, so if you don't want to answer, you could say no comment.
I mean,
But you know, I mean, if there's ever like, you know, what you might want to avoid is eating a sandwich at the dice. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
something that you make, because otherwise,
can't think
how are we
of
gonna know?
anything that I would think you need to put in.
Would be
there.
stand out
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
okay,
I agree.
then I'm cool with taking it out, because if it was, yeah. And the only thing that pops to my mind would be serial meetings, but that's
Well,
covered
I-
already.
all
It's
right,
covered. It's the Brown Act.
There's things that we've already covered that address improprieties.
Mhm.
So you're kind of making a newer category, but you really already covered it in other areas. Even the collective bargaining could be under a category of the board and negotiations, you know? And that's where you can say, as a matter of rule, board members don't attend collective bargaining sessions.
Yeah, it appears to me that this section is here because some people were partying and yeah, there was a reason for it. And yeah, someone was upset about something. Yeah, if everyone's okay, I just,
Anyone object to getting rid of that entire section?
I'm okay.
How about you, Elliot?
Yep, I'm okay with getting rid of it. We can always revisit down the road.
Okay. I think we have consensus.
Jenny.
Lou?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's what I hear.
Okay.
All right. Okay. That is our compact. Just gonna approve it equally by. No. Anytime it right, is there? During the, when do you want to redo it? And do you want it to be at an organizational meeting, or do you want to do it sometime in January with the new board?
I like January. What does the rest of the board think?
I think the sooner new people are sworn in and we get started, the better. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be the voice of dissent here again, but what about the fact that do they need some time to get their feet under them? I would have no idea what to say on some of these things in my first month. I mean, I'd be happy to try, but I just wonder if we want like a 3-month trial by fire period before. I'm happy either way, just again throwing it out there.
yeah, I think I agree with that. I'm reflecting back on maybe that first year. It's just tough. But, and I'm still every day, you're learning something new. I would say, yeah, maybe a little bit of time. Cause I mean, what's the date we're swearing in? Yeah, maybe like a March meeting.
And I would suggest that new board members should agree to this compact for the first 3 months until they get their feet under them, and then say like, okay, now it's our turn to say where we disagree. Because I think that's an important, like, this is what the board's decided on. Here's what we want to go. Let's start like this, and then we revisit as a group. Again, my 2 cents or 3 cents.
What if we put here during the 2025 calendar year and then leave it up to the board on when they want to do it, working with Linda?
Good
I
idea.
like that. That gives flexibility.
Sounds great.
Okay. Good. All right. I will I will send this draft out to all the board members to review. I've highlighted all the changes. The unstruck are new additions. And the things that are struck obviously come out are the deletions. So I will get this out to you, if not tomorrow, by Monday. And you can take a look at it and decide when you want to finalize it, and then we can review it again in 25.
Good job, hand. Well done.
Great.
Right.
Good work, team.
Thank you, Lou. Thank
Well
you.
done.
Got through it.
Well done. Okay. Good. All right. Anything else on our agenda?
I think just to review board goals, and I've, got a document that I'm bringing forward to propose, to, all of our trustees. So much of what we've talked about this year is really about having that alignment. And really, we've got our LCAP goals, and, the idea being that your board goals really should align, to what those goals are, because they're there. It makes it, I think just more, not only, sort of succinct and efficient, but I think just there's, more chance that you're going to, I think, be able to know what those goals are because we're seeing them regularly. And that, ultimately our LCAP and the goals, embedded within drive all of the decision making that we do anyway. That's how we, are making decisions at the dais as, items are brought forward for, consent or action. And so my proposal really is, and really what is before you is, it's the 4 goals specifically directly aligned with our LCAP that tie in with our mission statement, tie in with our, culture and community of we, our 3 core values. The only, addition that I did add, and this is really completely up to all of you, would be a 5th goal that, is specific towards resource management. And that was really one you had prior before as one of your goals. So really, I just lifted that and, I'm suggesting that we possibly keep that in there. And ultimately, you can see I wrote that. I mean, it aligns with all of the 4, LCAP goals, but also, just for us to ensure a culture of belonging and safety and prosperity, right? We really have to ensure that we're assigning our resources appropriately. And so I see the tie-in and alignment there. So thoughts, comments, questions? Open it up to discussion. And I'll, remind you for each of those goals, we have very specific actions and, measurable actions, right, that really help identify how we, are, obviously attaining and achieving them. So to make sure they are measurable. Was, goal 4, what I did there was really just add in the title community engagement, because that was the one goal that you had prior that, even though it is embedded, I think in all of the 4, LCAP goals, I really thought it, belonged there and allowed, for us to, I think, make mention and call attention to it, right? Just so that way, because I think that's a big part of what you as board members, you do it, you want to be sure that you're engaging with the community and that there are opportunities for that. So I think adding it there, along, to align with our cultural proficiency, goal, which ultimately is, that allows us to ensure that culture, it's all 3 core values are embedded into that particular one. Well, that belonged there. One's busy reading. Any immediate thoughts that you want to share out?
Go. I think this is exceptional. And I mean that very sincerely. I think when we sit and look at where we were a year ago and just for my personal experience, how it was, just kind of getting learned up on the district and understanding kind of, you know, the goals and the values and what was out there. That was a piece of information that wasn't clear and wasn't easily accessible as a community member. I will say I love that it's just cohesive and aligns with our LCAP and the other work that we're doing. I love that it's going to hold us accountable as a board and as a staff. I'll even use a word for my kids. I even love the aesthetic of how you laid it out. That's one of their words. They say aesthetic about a lot of things.
It's a beautiful
I
word.
love the aesthetic.
Aw.
I probably used that wrong, but I just like how clear and digestible it is and understandable. And this feels like something as a board member I can actually like take with me and remember and use as a reference and kind of a guide of like, where am I coming back to when I'm having conversations? So yeah, that was a lot of positive, but it really is for me just, I mean, this is like a whole new place that we're in right now and it makes me excited. So thank you. Thank you for putting so much work into all of these different elements of our district. It's just, it's amazing. So
Amazing team. And, you know, I've said it already from the beginning. It's like all of this, I feel that's so indicative of what all the work, you know, we did last year, right, together, and exciting to have it, right, being rolled out. Thank you for that.
I use the same word. I mean, it's exceptional. It's reading this makes me feel really proud to be part of this. And it's, it really does feel like a lot of things just came together. And I hope that you're giving yourself enough credit too. I mean, it's okay to pat yourself on the back a little bit sometimes because you're doing a phenomenal job. This is, you know, I wish I had a way to, wish I had the right words. I'm imagining like some kind of a stained glass where it's just a bunch of beads and you were like the heat that melted it and made it this like beautiful thing. So, yeah, this is great. I'm really proud.
Appreciate it.
Elliot?
I'm going to be that difficult person again. It's minor, but under goal 4.
Yeah, be quiet.
I do love them. I do love these goals. I'm not saying that, but PG will strive to create a culture of we in every school site where educators and families work together. I would just like to say students, educators, and families. I think the part is, again, it's the we. The students are part of their advocacy for the success of themselves. So that's, I mean, again, if that's the worst thing, you can ask anyone that I work with. If that's the worst thing I found with it, that's a pretty good draft. Yeah.
That's a great catch. Yes. Absolutely. Anything else?
Nope. All was said well.
Yeah, I'll just echo what everybody else said. I think that, again, and I think this falls in line with where we are right now as a board too, and where, you know, compared to where we were when we all came together. You know, it's a lot of hard work, and with Dr. Adamson leading that charge and all the staff and everybody, it's like I think this is indicative of our district and the efforts that everybody's making, and again that we've made as a board too, and the work that we put in. And I don't think this is common that, you know, it's like, and I've been dismissive often about this thing that I actually really like, this stuff, whereas I've referred to it often as navel gazing, right? It's like, oh my God, we're going to go and talk about our feelings again, right? You know, but this is part of that whole thing too, is like, because we bring a lot of feelings to this work, and we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't have a lot of feelings too, right? We care about this, and this demonstrates how much we care, and Dr. Adamson and her cabinet and the teachers and the staff and Dr. Andrew and Lou, who also care about the work that we do, and everybody's pulled together to make it better. And I think also knowing too that it's like it can always get better. And there are always going to be tweaks. We're going to slide a word in here or there, or we're going to change something because something else happened. But I'm really proud of this too. It's a nice way to be going out. You know, it's a nice way. So that's what I got.
Okay, wow, that was awesome feedback. Thank you. Honestly, we couldn't have done it alone, right? This is our work. It is every one of you, our staff. It's, and that's something you've all said it. You feel proud, and we should, right? Because this is us. This is the product that we put together. So the fact that you see it on paper and you feel good and it aligns with, your values and what we, hold as important. That's important. So that's critical. Wow. Okay. We will make that change. Yep.
That is an information discussion item that I think we've infoed and discussed. We do still need to open it up to public comment. We had some that we jumped in, but anybody online? Beth, any closing thoughts?
I think it's inspired.
Yeah.
This is.
It's inspired. Like you're going for. I think it really is. And it's very reassuring. And it should be reassuring to any community member as well as a parent or a teacher that reads this or staff member, and I think that's a pretty hard goal to reach because communication is difficult and it's something you're always working on. But so kudos to you because this is a crowning achievement for the first year, Yeah. What are you going to do next year?
No pressure. No pressure. No pressure.
Thanks for that, Faith. Oh my God.
Any other additional board discussion on this particular item? There was some direction given with the insertion of that one word. And again, thanks to everybody's hard work. I do think we have every reason to be proud of this. And for the community support to the work that we do. Our next meeting is a regular board meeting is September 5 and a special board meeting on September 12. But with that.
Before you do that?
Yeah.
What about the walk-on item?
Oh, we can't. No, because I know it'll have to be a ratification. No.
Yeah.
But before we do, could we do our one-word takeaways very quickly? I go around the room. Yes.
Was this sort of like what we wrote down during
Well, just your one word that kind of feels how you are feeling going into the rest of this year, this new year, working together.
Got mine.
One word.
Elevated.
I've got to catch it. Thank you.
Hopeful.
Elliot?
We.
Ah.
I don't have just one word, but I'm going to use what I wrote down during the back to school breakfast. We had one word and then one thought, and I'm going to miss this gig. And we are adjourned.
Oh, you guys.